Guys, we need to learn how to over communicate a lot more. And what I mean by that is not that you go to somewhere and you share everything about, wow, back in my childhood. No. If you're trying to say something, especially over text, right, but this applies generally, please be very clear and explicit in what you are trying to say. Example, right? If you're gonna go for dinner plans and you plan to go somewhere to meet up, don't just say, hey, see you later, and not provide context, right? I mean, this is very straightforward, but it happens so many times. And a recent communicate miscom basically was with a group of us. We were saying that, hey, are we going to person A's house? And I personally had asked if I could go over. So that was step one. The other person in the group chat said, oh, okay, we'll go over as well. Let me ask. So then they asked and they were going. Right. And then there was a third person that initially I had set dinner plans with, but said he was going. So what happened was that, of course, I thought, oh, he had asked, right? Clearly, I was not clear enough in my communication. And to be fair, neither was he. So when we ended up meeting and he said, oh, did you help me ask if I could go over? I said, no, because you said you were going. And he said, but you mentioned that you asked this person. I said, yeah, I asked for me. You said you were going. So there was a bit of a hoo-ha. Anyway, we ended up not going to the person's house. I already said I wasn't going because I wanted to sleep earlier. So we went for dinner. But I remember reflecting and thinking, I cannot change that person, the way they communicate. But I can change how I can share. And if I was to communicate clearly and double check and make sure that, hey, have you asked this person if you can go over? Then things wouldn't have been as bad as it was. And we didn't fight or anything, but it was just a bit upsetting. And in the end, I kind of like, I felt bad because technically there was no more space to go. And so that person came over to meet us just to go home. But of course, like I said in the story, we all ended up eating together at Hai Di Lao and we had a great time. So yeah, over communicate. And I think on top of that, how does this translate to text? I think as guys, we generally don't text a lot, right? I don't know, it doesn't seem like a thing, especially in Singapore, but when we text, we can receive like 5 different questions and we'll only answer one. I don't know if it's just me or if it's a guy thing. I've seen so many memes about it. It seems to be a worldwide phenomenon, but regardless, we aren't the best at texting, and for the longest time I've struggled. I started to use more emojis as I grew older so that people wouldn't misunderstand my tone. And using emojis, typing things like ha 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 in caps versus lowercase, right? Very different. And learning how to communicate clearly. So something that I've been doing now is whenever I send a text, and it's typically usually very short to answer something, very straight to the point, unless I'm trying to have a proper communication with someone, have a fun conversation. Most of the time, if it's just like, hey, are you in office? I'll say no. And I provide zero context, right? Now what I've been trying to do to over communicate is I will say no and then send already. Then I realize that I'm sending too little information. So I said, but I'm here, my current state, and I reply, is there anything I can do for you? Or I don't say, what do you want? I say, what's up? Or in a very friendly tone, is there anything that I could help with? What this has done in the past 3 days, at least for me, it's made things a lot easier and clearer in my communication with people. And I do feel a genuinely positive change. I don't know if the people on the receiving end have received that, but I've noticed that from my own end, it feels like at least I'm very, very clear about what I'm communicating. And so far, I've avoided a lot of, it's hard to say because there was no potential fight that I could foresee, but I feel like I've avoided a lot of miscommunication. Even today, I was going to give an example, but it's not a very good one. But an example of bad communication that I've been noticing these past 2 weeks very specifically is also with guys, right? And what happens, I think generally this doesn't happen with women because women generally seem to communicate a lot better than guys, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, have your arguments, but this just seems to be the case because I think girls in general can express their emotions or thoughts a lot better. Guys don't. So, anyway, what happened these past 2 weeks is that there have been 3 separate incidences where me sharing too little has gotten me into a bit of trouble, right? There was one case with a friend a few weeks back. Basically, I had shared sentiments about a certain meeting that I didn't want to attend because I didn't feel. To put it bluntly, I just said I don't feel like it's very deep for me. It's very shallow. That's why I said. I did not elaborate, and looking back, I should have taken some time to really process it and come out clearer before I talked to him. But I addressed it on the spot because he asked me, and he ended up lecturing me for like 5 to 10 minutes. And in my mind, I was trying to think, okay, I'm trying to communicate. I want to understand his point. So let me just listen. But as I was listening for 10 minutes, things were just not getting through. And I felt a bit frustrated because whatever he was saying is not related to anything that I was saying. Okay, it was kind of related, but it was totally out of context and misinterpretation. So what happened basically, if we break it down, I said a statement, he did not clarify, and through that lack of clarification on his end, he assumed something and tried to communicate back to me why he disagrees and thinks something should be different. Whereas if in the first place I had over communicated and said, hey, I know this may not sound very nice to you. This is just how honestly I feel. I really don't want to hurt your feelings as well. I understand that. And just over communicated at the start, right? A, he wouldn't have had the miscommunication, the misunderstanding. B, he wouldn't have felt as hurt as he was. And C, I think we wouldn't have ended up in that situation and we would have been more resolved, I would say. Yeah, because now I still feel similar feelings. The conversation kind of just halted there because he thought he was saying something. I'm like, no, but I didn't want to address it there. So anyway, that was the first situation. And you can see how if I had shared things clearly from the start. So again, I'm taking full ownership right here, right? Extreme ownership by Jocko Willink. What is something I could have done? Yes, he could have clarified. Yes, he could have asked more questions. On my end, I could have overshared a bit more, right? And I rather err to the side of oversharing than undersharing. So that's the first one. The second and third one are quite similar, but I think it's unsolicited advice, right? Again, a lack of clarification, a lack of reading what is going on, and having that EQ to sense things. So I was sharing with someone, hey, basically, did the person A help clarify with person B, right? Because I was feeling a bit upset and annoyed at person B for a lack of planning, a lack of communication, a lack of any real logic, right? Long story short, after I clarified and I shared why I was feeling that way, trying to over communicate a bit, he started giving unsolicited advice that, oh, I should be practicing grace and be more gracious. And I just felt like this is not something I wanted to hear. I clearly said that I'm feeling annoyance. I'm just asking about this. Apparently not clear enough, so I do take responsibility. But then that whole lecture, I just felt like I did not ask for advice on this. I'm just asking, did you clarify because I'm thinking about this? Long story short, I just replied, okay, thanks. I do agree that I can be more gracious, and then just kind of ended it there. Because again, I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm trying to just communicate things, and I didn't want to make something out of nothing. So lesson learned. And then finally today, when basically we had a lesson and then we had a sharing, and I gave my thoughts on the lesson about purpose, about how I agree, and what I'm doing specifically now. Again, I felt like when it was my turn to share, going back to to the other people, what happened was that they gave advice, or specifically one person gave advice that, by the way, was helpful, but it was not done the most tactfully. It wasn't like so I shared vulnerably. I just shared about my goals this year, why I felt that way, and how God's working, and etc. And then this person was like, "Oh, you know what? How can this be combined with?" And started asking questions about how this thing can be improved. And I was just thinking, are we not just sharing about what we learned from the lesson? Why does this have to become something that I get lectured in? And it was a joke because someone took a photo and I was just sitting down there like listening like and I thought I wasn't very obvious, but apparently from my body language it was very, very clear that I wasn't the most happy sitting there. So again, I do think that from his side, if he had said, "May I offer some input? Thanks for sharing. I was thinking about this. Can I share something?" It would have made the whole sharing a lot better. But the fact is that he jumped into a conclusion, assuming the situation, which, by the way, he only got about 60 to 70% correct, which on my end, again, is something that I need to work towards to be more clear in my communication. The fact is that because I'm not clear, people are not understanding me, and in that, they misinterpret it and I get misunderstood. So I'm taking full responsibility here that I need to grow in this, over communicate and share. And like I mentioned, I'm doing it through text, but I do need to apply this in my own personal life as well. And I think it applies to my work as well. Being a financial advisor, a lot of times I can end up assuming a situation and not clarifying. And I totally take full ownership of that as well. And I have nothing to say, but I wish I could have been better. So yeah, anyway, regardless, this is something that I'm very intentionally thinking about now. And I hope that other people around me can start to learn. But if they don't, I will take responsibility and I will be the one to over communicate and share more than ask, so that they don't need to ask the questions and they don't misunderstand me at all. That is something I'm taking into 2025. Not just with my friends. I'm trying to do this with my parents. I'm trying to do this with basically those close, like family, basically, that I don't really share a lot. This is something that they said on New Year's, which is, can we work towards having more sharing, or more, basically just communicating more. So I do think this is an area I'm lacking in. I fully take acknowledgement, and I hope that if you're listening, you can learn these lessons so you don't have to go through them. Practically, to summarize, what can you do, right? To summarize everything, remember that over communication of something to give better context is gonna be a lot better than under communicating, especially if it's something important like your feelings, something about your week, your day, and something that involves a person's input. Be very clear with that, because when you have a lack of input and they don't have the EQ to ask you questions, that's when trouble comes, and that's when they misunderstand and they start giving you advice or start talking to you about the situation that is completely wrong. So over communicate rather than under communicate. Very important. And I'm not saying overshare. Oh, they ask, like someone asks you how's your day, and you say, "Well, when I was young, my parents did." Don't start sharing your sad story, right? Be tactful in the way you address it. But if it's something important in a communication setting, that's close proximity with close friends, over communicate, and I promise you will avoid so many situations that have misunderstandings. That's a guarantee. You won't avoid all of them, but you avoid so many unnecessary ones. Do what you will, but that's my thoughts for today. And if we are working towards being more like Jesus, more like God, more like God's intention for us, being purposeful men on our mission, then this is an area that we definitely need to work in. When we have our spouse, when we have our kids, when we have people under our leadership, we need to over communicate so that you can lead them well and you can bring them to a place that they need to be, right? So take your time, learn what you need to do, about your pitfalls, about what are your tendencies, and then slowly address them. I can confidently say my communication skills in the past 2 weeks have grown significantly than in the past 6 months. And it was just because I was more intentional, taking full ownership and just being more aware. Once you're more aware, things will change. So I hope this is helpful. Again, please learn from my mistakes so you don't have to go through it. It's currently 12:30, way past my bedtime, but I wanted to record this video because I really thought this was important and I want to stick to uploading every day. Yeah, every day. Every day is my goal. So I won't change the goalposts. I will just change the way that I structure these things, which I will do in the morning so that I can get it edited and have more energy. Again, sorry for yesterday's video. If you watched it, or if you're gonna watch it, the audio kind of cuts out because I'm wearing my earpiece. I plugged it back in. I didn't know it would affect the audio because basically the receiver showed that it's receiving, and at the same time, why I'm speaking so softly compared to when I'm out and about outside. It's 12:30, guys. I have my parents outside in their room, so if I start talking at my normal voice, my outdoor voice, it's not gonna be great. So indoor voices, guys. So I hope this audio today it's fine, and I hope to keep this level of quality with what I'm trying to say, with the thoughts and everything. Yesterday I was a bit messy with the structure, but I promise I'm working towards how I can better structure these videos to make it more impactful for you as a viewer. So if you made it this far, I would genuinely appreciate if you can just leave a comment. Right, what is something that you will want to do right now, or what is something you're reminded of that you should be doing? What is something that you're currently doing that I mentioned in the video? Right, one of these 3 things: something you learned that you want to do, something you're reminded of that you've done before and want to do it again, or the third one is basically what is something that you thought, hey, that was a good reminder, I already knew that, but that's a very good point. Yeah, share some love so I know what's bringing value. Yeah, and I will keep this up as well. So I do hope this is beneficial. You never get good. Anything you start is always going to be bad. So thank you for bearing with me. And 300 days from now, I promise my videos will be a lot better, as long as I'm consistent. So that's what I'm aiming for. My system now is record, CapCut. Don't remove the fillers because I'm trying to practice speaking clearly so that the AI recognizes my words more clearly, so enunciating more. It's not easy, right? Especially as a Singaporean. And then adding music and then uploading it. So trying to streamline that process. The whole thing, depending on the video, after that post-production takes about 20 to 25 minutes. So yeah, I'll see if I can streamline that. But that's all for today, guys. I wish you all the best for 2025. Just know that change can happen in an instant as long as we're compounding these daily wins. So stick with this channel. I'll add as much value as I can, and I will bring you to a place that, well, I can't really guarantee, but I'm going to try and bring you to a place that you never thought you could reach. So take care. See y'all. Good night.